Difference between liberalist and Marxist notion of human freedom. Liberalism and Marxism are comparative theoretical perspectives on human freedom that have sparked debates in education. However, differentiating between the two models is challenging. Liberalism involves the ideology, political construct, and philosophy indicating that a person's freedoms form the legal base of the society and economic order. Liberalism aims to develop a culture of freedom of action, exchange of ideas, contracting powers of the state and the church, and the right to private development. The basic principles of liberalism comprised information on natural rights, including life, property, and liberty. Civil rights, the market economy, government transparency and responsibilities, and equity and equality before the law were incorporated into liberalism. The basis was critical in differentiating it from Marxist understanding. Liberalism promotes human freedom through popular opinion, while Marxism limits it via anarchy. Liberalist principles ensure that government roles are reduced to the possible minimum. Modern liberalists prefer an open society because it promotes democracy and pluralism. Liberalism becomes a precursor of human freedom since it protects minority and individual citizens' rights. Government's regulations in the liberalist world are more tolerant of free markets for the sake of ascertaining equal opportunities for success and education, and reducing income inequalities. Liberalists are convinced that the political systems have embraced welfare state components, such as unemployment benefits, shelter for the homeless, and universal health care. Liberalists argued that a government system's purpose is to benefit the people under it, while the political leadership of the nation should be dependent on the consent of the majority. This liberal view gives more power to the people, which increases their freedom. Today's political landscape corresponds to the beliefs of the liberals because it promotes democratic government. Marxism emphasized the significance of social thought and political movements. Marxism has received different interpretations depending on how a person perceives Karl Marx's theory. For example, socialism is an aspect of political Marxism representing left anarchism but is not part of social democracy. Marxism is believed to be a philosophy of surplus values, historical materialism, and the proletariat's dictatorial governance. Thus, Marxism influenced scientific revolutions in sociology, economics, and political science, among other sciences. Through Marxist political values, class struggles, and social processes are considered inevitable. It also recognizes that the proletariats have a leading role that hinders community production and private property ownership characteristics of the capitalist system. Marxists focus on how to translate philosophy into reality by condemning contemplative consciousness. Political systems have used Marxist ideals to justify their plans and actions. For instance, the Soviet Union embraced Marxism to limit human freedoms through vulgar representation against the philosophy's goals. Liberalism has recently been listed as a leading ideology worldwide. Such consideration is enhanced by the liberal perspectives on individual liberty, freedom of expression, dignity, freedom of religion, free markets, rights to private property, and equality. Limitations on state power, the rule of law, self-determination, the people's supremacy, and universal human rights are characteristic of liberal ideologies. Through liberal democratic political fields, nations have demonstrated different social, economic, and cultural well-being, like Canada, the United States, and Spain. Such countries have endorsed liberal values to shape contemporary societal goals by reducing the gap between people's ideas and reality. Political liberalism has been evident in Western societies through their movements. Right-wing liberals emphasize classical liberalism, which can be expressed through their objection to the provisions of social liberalism. The classical liberals work alongside the conservatives since they share cultural manifestations of liberalism as opposed to morality. Conservative liberalism was considered an ideological adversary, moderated after World War II, and abolished the dictatorship in Western conservatism. Liberalists are persuaded that no government should interfere with an individual's life or business but instead protect their liberty and property from others' encroachment. Conservatives became active defenders of private ownership and privatization. Such consideration shows the transformation of the conservatives that embraced liberal values. Libertarians often support cultural and economic liberalism while opposing social liberalism. Some liberals believe the government should demonstrate adequate strength to implement the rule of law, whereas others argue that public and private organizations should be involved in law enforcement. The arguments are based on the essence of limiting state control while promoting popular opinions. Significant variations have been identified in most public liberal movements. Some liberals tend to favor sexual freedom, police transfers, weapon and drug trade, and increased private security firms' functionality. The economic liberals are inclined towards a single income tax rate or replacement if it per capita to privatize education, healthcare, and pension schemes and promote independence. Most liberal societies are compelled to abolish, disarm, and abandon nuclear technology and environmental protection since they infringe on human rights. Recently, liberals have escalated debates on multiculturalism, which seem to be limited by the increasing technological revolution. Though some liberals are convinced that ethnic minorities share fundamental societal values, others think the majority's functions should be limited to protecting the rights of ethnic communities. Moreover, some liberals propose that the ethnic minority should be integrated into society to preserve its integrity. Overall, Marxist and liberalist ideas are not compatible with the modern forms of political governance since they were developed and implemented at critical historical times. Even though the principles promise some people to advance contemporary politics and economy, they have become morally outdated and invaluable for most countries. Liberalism supported pluralism and democratic governments, while Marxism promoted socialism. The inapplicability of liberalism and Marxism reflects the maturity of political movements and ways of life in the 21st century. In such regards, the ideas cannot be reconciled but can be used in developing a new valuable approach to the economy. Despite the differences between Marxism and liberalism in the interpretation of human freedom, they both aimed to better society.